Do you feel you wouldn't be here for this interview if you didn't have that gun?
No, sir.
You feel you would not be here?
I feel that it was all God's plan, and for me to second guess it or judge it.
Is there anything you might do differently in retrospect now that time has passed a little bit?
No, sir.
That was Fox News replaying an interview with Sean Hannity that got played in court. A quite sympathetic interview. I'm here with Karen DeSoto, a criminal defense attorney, MSNBC contributor James Peterson, and Tim Wise, anti-racism educator. We're talking about the Zimmerman trial. And what's interesting to me, Tim, as someone who locates himself on the left, I tend to be very skeptical of the machinery of the criminal justice system, partly because growing up in the Bronx when I did, at the period of time I did.
Because of the data.
Because of the data, right, exactly.
It's a biased system.
And yet here we are, I find myself being really angry at the defense, or watching the defense with skepticism, and watching and sort of on the side of the prosecution.
Well, and let's be honest, people on the right who are normally completely willing to support the state and the DAs and just about anything they do, in this particular case, are all public defenders.
Right, that's right, exactly. Everyone's a bleeding heart now.
And I think what this tells us, and it's an important point to make for all of us to think about, is that none of us come to any of these issues, particularly when race is in the frame, from a totally objective place. When race is in the picture, we all, or when class or sexuality or anything is in the picture, we come with our own assumptions. I mean, very few people, for instance, who now were saying, well, George Zimmerman is innocent until proven guilty. Of course, that's true in the court of law. But how many of those people were really thinking that O.J. might be innocent when he was in the Bronco in June of '94? Like, they made their assumptions.
Or was saying that about Ariel Castro when those 3 women came out of the house in Cleveland, which, again, was like a monstrous crime, but like, he's also innocent until proven guilty. That's a principle. And today in court, we saw in some ways the defense trying to use the political kind of explosion around this case to their own defense.
I agree. I think that one of the defense tactics was to put Trayvon Martin's dad on the stand to set up the next witness, which was the chief of police, who basically testified that it was what the mayor did by playing the tape to Trayvon Martin's dad was improper. It was not best practices, and kind of gave this inference that there was some kind of political
right. So here's the mayor kind of helicoptering into an active investigation.
Not
playing
the police, the mayor.
And the irony here, right, is that, of course, we all saw this injustice play out in real time. The injustice, I mean, of the non-arrest, right? And yet it's remarkable to see that injustice was then redressed, and now in the actual trial, the sequence of that being used itself by the defense.
I mean, again, look at this police department, look at the history of the San Francisco Police Department. This is not an A-plus police department. So for them to now point the finger at the mayor for playing politics, we have to go back to that moment where there wasn't an arrest, where we were looking really squarely at the San Francisco Police Department. And remember, this is a reluctant prosecution. This is not the kind of prosecution you normally see in these kinds of cases. And so at the end of the day, I think the court of public opinion is not going to match up with what's going on in that courtroom. And that's where I think we're getting this tension as the case starts to wind down.
Well, I think that one of the problems is that the state of Florida giving out concealed weapons to their citizens when it's very, very difficult in other states to get a concealed weapon, and then expect that these type of things are not going to happen. I mean, it's really, no one is winning in this case, but the state of Florida, I think the Martins should go ahead and file something against the state of Florida for liability correlated to that, because if you're going to give George Zimmermans of the world guns who are not military, not trained police, and expect that this is not going to happen.
And someone who's not, historically been proven to be the most stable individual. I mean, this is what happens when we have an overly armed society, in a society particularly where racial bias is so prevalent. All of these things combine to create these kind of disasters.
Criminal defense attorney Karen DeSoto, MSNBC contributor James Peterson, anti-racism educator Tim Wise. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.